guys, it's a proud cat lover, and today I'm going to be making a corn snake care video for you, and this is my third attempt, so I really hope this one turns out good because every time I make my video I either get interrupted by my family members or I start rambling and I don't like how it's turning out, or I don't like how it's sounding, so I'll just start over. So today, like I said, I'm going to be making a corn snake care video. This here is Raja. He is 1.5 years old. He is about 2.5 feet long, as you can see, and he's still, whoop, there he goes. Now I can kind of show him to you. So you can see here, he is pretty big. He's got a really pretty checkered belly. He would be called a classic morph because he is pretty much the wild type around here, and these are actually local to Kansas, so local snake species that can be found here in Kansas, which is kind of cool. So this would be what they would look like, except he, of course, is captive bred. This would be what we would consider a wild type. So I've had Raja since he was about 4 or 5 months old. He was a little guy. He was pretty cute. And so, like I said, he's about 1.5 years now. So the first thing I want to talk about today is tank sizes. So they say that you need at least 1 foot of a tank per foot of snake. So depending on if you have a male or a female corn snake, females can get anywhere between 5 to 6 foot, 6 foot being in the rarer cases, but normally 5 to 5.5 feet is pretty typical for a female. Normally 3.5 to 4 feet, sometimes 4.5 feet is typical for a male. So right now Raja's in a 3-foot tank and he's 2.5 feet long. So by the time he's adult, depending on how big he gets, he may be getting a 4-foot tank. Now, because 4.5 foot is a little bit of an odd measurement, he may just be getting a 4-foot tank and being a little bit too long. But I'd rather him be in a tank. Oh, Rose. Pardon that, guys. Rose. This is leaning up against a box, and she just decided she wanted to sit in it. But like I said, tank size, I just explained to you. You want to make sure that it's properly ventilated and that it has... he really wants to go over to Rose. That's properly ventilated, and it'd be nice if you can get one that has sliding front doors, either sliding or opening. I know that vivariums sometimes have the sliding doors, and the Exoterria, which he's in right now, has the opening doors, because if you get a tank where you have to reach in from the top, when snakes are in the wild, their predators will come down on them from the top, and it's just something that they don't feel comfortable with. He doesn't like when I try to pick him up from the top. So if you can come in from the side and scoop him up, or I'm saying him, but any snake in general really, but this of course is for corn snakes. But if you can come in from the side, it's a lot less threatening to them than if you were coming in from the top. So I'd suggest investing in a nice tank like that where it has sliding or opening doors, whether it be a vivarium, which is mainly made out of wood or melamine or PVC, or if you just get a glass terrarium, you'll have to... I have a... which you guys will see in the picture. I'll put a picture here for you. But I have a towel that goes over 75% of the tank, so it helps to hold in the humidity, and it also helps because I like to keep in the warmth as much as I can in his tank. And so the next thing I will talk about, since we've got that covered, is proper decor, hides, water dish, all that stuff for decorating your tank and stuff. So it's very important to have a water dish that is at least big enough for your snake to be able to curl up in, because sometimes when they're shedding, they like to curl up in the water dish. Sometimes when he gets in there to get a drink, he likes to swim, and he really likes to try to go in my shirt. So it's important to have a dish that's the proper size for your corn snake. Some corn snakes do like to swim and some do not, so you definitely don't want to force your corn snake to get into the water dish because it can stress them out sometimes. But offering it just so that they have the option is a good idea, and making sure that the water dish is clean. You don't want to leave any poop in there or anything. If he gets bedding in there, you don't want to leave that because it could start to mold or rot in the water, and that wouldn't be good. With decor, you want to have at least 2 hides, one on the cold side and one on the hot side. I have 3 hides. I have one in the middle of my tank. I have a hot hide, and then I have a humid hide, which is for him to shed, or whenever it's real dry in my room, he can go in there if he wants to be in a more humid environment. And it's just a real nice thing to just be able to offer a humid hide, just so they have that option. I just use sphagnum moss, and I take my mister that I have and I spray it down to where it's damp but not dripping water. And that will normally stay damp for a good 3 to 4 days before I just have to spray it a little bit more. With Decor, you want to make sure that you get safe Decor because you don't want your snake to cut itself on any sharp edges. Make sure the Decor does not have any small holes that are not big enough for their body to go through. You want to make sure it's at least 1.5 inches diameter, and so you can kind of get an idea that is plenty of room for a corn snake to go through as an adult. Obviously, Raj is not an adult, but you want to make sure that it's at least 1 inch or 1.5 inches in diameter, because some of those decorations for reptiles out there are those skulls, like of dinosaurs or of people. And this is an interesting angle, but some of those Decor have really small holes in them, and a corn snake or a snake in general could get stuck in there, and they will wiggle and pull until they get free, and they can really tear up their scales, and that can really harm them. It can take a good 3 to 4 sheds for them to grow that back, and that's after you've gone to the vet and gotten like antibiotic cream or whatever to put on their body. And I've never had that happen, but I've watched TV shows of like vet offices that are exotic vets, so I know a little bit about it. But you just want to make sure the Decor you're getting is safe. Don't get anything that has chemicals that's been treated with or any dyes that could bleed off of the plant when you clean it. Because if you place it back into the tank, chances are while it's drying, your snake could slither over that and it could get absorbed into their skin. You just want to be real careful and cautious. This is a living animal you're taking care of. You don't want to be skimpy. Some stuff may be expensive, but this is Decor we're talking about. You're never going to have to toss it unless it gets broken, or if you have issues with pests. And most of the time, if you have like parasites or anything, you've got like snake mites or anything, sometimes referred to as blood mites. If you get anything like that, most of the time you can just treat Decor, and you can take the Decor and keep it in a bag with the treatment, whatever you use, whether it be the PAM, which is Preventamite, or there's also Duracimite, which I've personally bought, because at one time I thought Raja had mites. Turned out it was just grain mites from when I was still getting rid of my grain mites, which I am finally free of grain mites after 2 years of dealing with them. So that was another story, way long time ago. But yeah, so definitely be very careful when you're buying Decor. Like I said, make sure you get a water dish, have at least 2 hides, if not 3, one of them of course being a human hide if you can. I'll put a link to the hide that I got in the description. They work really well for corn snakes, and they also, I've read reviews that even ball pythons at a young age can use them. He is really wanting to go into my shirt. There we go. So he's probably a little angry because I just pulled him out. We'll talk about a heat pad and a thermostat now. I would never suggest using a heat bulb because snakes have to absorb heat from their bellies to be able to digest their food. Now you can use a low wattage heat bulb if you want to keep an ambient temperature of like 70 or 72. But I would definitely, think about before you do if you're going to be able to keep the tank humid enough, unless you buy a humid hide and have it at the far end wherever this bulb would be, then that'd be okay. Because I know keeping ambient temperatures is important. I have a room heater that keeps my room between 70 and 74, so I don't worry about getting a heat bulb. I just use a heat mat that's controlled by a thermostat. You never want to get a heat mat and not have a thermostat to control it. They can get well above 120 degrees, especially if you get a 10 to 20 gallon heat mat. They can get very hot, and that can burn your snake's belly. It could do a lot of damage. It even could cause a fire potentially if it gets really hot, because sometimes that can happen. So by having a thermostat, which I have a review of the one I use, and so far it's great. It works amazing compared to some that I've heard of. Whenever you do have a thermostat in a tank that's controlling a heat pad, it is smart to get a secondary thermometer. Like I use ZoomEd, and I'll show a little picture of the ones I use. But I use ZoomEd to monitor my heat mat to make sure it's not getting hotter or colder than it should. But it's very important because you don't want to burn your snake, but you want it to make sure that the heat pad is getting to the proper temperature. So it's very important, like I said, to have heating, especially if you live in a cold area like me. So next we'll talk about the proper prey sizes. If I'm looking over here, it's because I have a notebook. But so the way that I've been told anyway, is the way to pick out the proper size of prey is that you can pick out something that's 1.5 times wider than the widest point of your snake. So let's say that Raja is 1/2 inch right now. So I could pick out 1.5 inches prey size. So right now I'm feeding him peach fuzzies, and it is leaving a little tiny bump still. So that's why I haven't moved him up, and I kind of want to use up my peach fuzzies so they don't go to waste. So I've been feeding him 2 peach fuzzies because they're leaving a small bump. But you only normally should feed a bigger prey size, like moving up in the size of prey, once it does not leave a bump anymore. Or if you have prey left over like what I do, then I just feed 2. Never feed more than 2 because it could regurgitate the food, because it's kind of like people. If you eat too much, you feel sick and you just want to throw up. That's pretty much what happens with a snake. So it is wise to not handle your snake up to 3 days after they've eaten. I normally wait 3 days or more. Like with Raja, I've waited 4 days for him to digest his food, because where he eats 2 peach fuzzies instead of just 1, it takes a little bit longer for him to digest it. So I normally wait a good 4 to 5 days to handle him so that he doesn't regurgitate his food and it doesn't stress him out. And I'll of course put a picture of food so you can kind of get an idea of the size of prey, mice versus rats, that I found off of Google. And it's kind of what I go off of to see, like, size-wise what the animals are. Next we'll talk about handling and cleaning. So handling-wise, when you get your corn snake, you want to support its body. I mean, unless your corn snake does this, he'll just wrap himself around your hand or your head or wherever you are. Wherever he is, I mean. But when you first get your corn snake, it's of course probably going to be a little skittish because you're new to him and he's new to you. So you'll want to support their body. You'll want to give it about a week to adjust to its new environment before you handle it. Normally I can handle Raja for up to an hour, but I normally give him a good day or 2 after that, just in his tank, so it's not stressing him too much. If I were to get him out every day, then that definitely would probably stress him out. When you first get your corn snake though, handling it in about 15-minute intervals, like 15 minutes per day, or per like every 2 days, just to tame it, get it used to you and your scent after you've let it relax and, you know, adjust for a week, then that's okay. I would not suggest holding it 30 minutes or more when you've not had it very long, because it definitely could stress the snake out. Could possibly even cause it to try to strike at you. If it's nervous, it will definitely display if it's nervous or not, because it'll rattle its tail, they hiss sometimes, they will strike. They're not very aggressive snakes, but if you make them angry or you scare them, then they can become aggressive. So, like I said, with handling, just supporting their body and just kind of, you know, studying their moves and how they like to be held, what they like, what they don't like, where do they like to be touched, where do they not like to be touched. Definitely don't touch their heads or their faces. That just, in general, a snake does not like that. So, definitely when you go to pick them up, scoop them up from, like, their side. Don't just come directly above them and grab them. Just kind of let them crawl into your hand, or if you're getting them out of the tank, then scoop them up with your hand. Don't grab them from the top because it makes them nervous. So with cleaning, normally you want to do a good deep clean, depending on how dirty the tank is and how much your reptile has gone to the bathroom in it and stuff. I normally deep clean every 4 to 6 months. Because I have a bedding, which I will show, which was in the picture, but I'll show a picture of, like, the bag itself. But with the bedding that I use, it's really easy to spot clean, so I will spot clean it most of the time, and when I feel like I want to clean it, he's not real dirty, and he never gets the tank real dirty. But just because I want to make sure it's clean, like every 4 to 6 months, I'll do a complete deep clean. I'll take the bedding out, I'll take out all the decor, I'll clean everything with a reptile safe soap, and I'll scrub everything down in the tank, and then I'll put everything back in, new bedding, clean decor, everything like that. So, but doing spot cleaning throughout those months before you do a deep clean helps tremendously on keeping the tank clean, and it will not stink unless you just leave stuff in there. And you don't want to do that because the snake could get sick from having all the droppings and stuff in there. It could start to mold, is what I mean. And obviously mold is not good for any animal to breathe in. So if it's not good for people to breathe in, it's definitely not good for animals in general. So the other things we'll talk about are bedding. I have bedding on there and pests. So I think that's the last thing I have left to talk about. And I'll just kind of do some little random stuff. But with bedding, I use Carefresh, all-natural, dust-free paper bedding. And it's white. And I really suggest getting the white one instead of the tan, because you can observe really easily if they have used the bathroom or not. Sometimes when I'm in a hurry or whatever, and I see the bedding in his water dish before I go to work or something, that's when I take it out and put it in the corner. If I'm not in a hurry and I'm just here and I notice it, I just throw it in the trash. I don't even bother putting it in the corner. It's not that big of a deal. It's a little piece of bedding. But if you don't have time to clean out wet pieces or whatever, then just leave them there on the side until you can throw them away, unless you just want to wait and see if they'll dry out. Obviously, if it's poop, just wait till you have enough time and use gloves or a paper towel and just grab the droppings and then toss it in the trash. So, with pests, I've never had experience with mites, as in like snake mites, but I've heard they're kind of really similar to just fleas with a cat or dog. Pretty much. I mean, they can be life-threatening, just like a cat or dog can have with fleas, if you allow them to be to the point where they get really infested. So if you take care of it right away, then normally you don't have to worry about ever getting them again. Most of the time snakes get them from either being at reptile expos, or if you're having where you're getting the snake at a pet store, then sometimes they can be exposed to other snakes within the facility or where they came from that had mites, and it's really easy for mites to travel from snake to snake. Some other reptiles also can get snake mites, but most of the time with like crested geckos and leopard geckos, like what I have, you don't have to worry because they like getting under scales, and where most other reptiles don't have scales, then you don't have to worry, but there are a few that you do have to worry about. But if you do see mites on your snake, do not freak out and everything, because it doesn't help. You just get stressed, and if you're like me, stress causes depression, and then you feel like you're not getting anything done, so you just have to plow through feeling stressed or depressed, and get it taken care of. You can't leave it because it'll just get worse. So the way to notice if you have snake mites is when you have your snake, if you take it and you just rub it through your hands like this, and right now he's kind of attached to me, so I can't really do it very well, but if you grab the snake and you just gently pull its body through your hands, if you look at your hand, there will be little black dots or little mites, because sometimes when they are freshly shed, they will be white, and I've only know this because I've read that, but or if they're new mites that have not eaten blood yet, they will be white. So if you take and you just rub your hands over your snake, or if it crawls on your hand like it is here, that's a good way to be able to see if there's any mites on it or not, or you can even tell sometimes they'll be crawling on it. You definitely always want to check, and when you're doing this, just be really careful, because their heads are delicate. But if you get a good grip on the head like this, being real gentle here, not being rough, but just grab their head, and if you look underneath these pits here that they'll have on their chin. Come here, Raja. If you look underneath the neck here. Oh, I know, you're mad. He's not really mad. He's not rattling his tail or anything. Come here. But if you look underneath where he has like these black lines, if you look under the head here, this is going to be the main area that the, I almost said fleas, that the mites are going to gather. And when they get under the scales, they'll just look like little black dots. And it's really easy to tell if your snake has mites or not if you look wherever there's white. Sometimes if they get under the scales on the body, it's going to be really hard to tell because most of the time this is brown and black. So if you have a snake that has a light colored underside, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to tell if the snake has mites by looking at the part of it that's real light colored instead of dark. So there's a few things that are out there that you can use to make sure that the mites die, or that you can prevent them from ever coming back once you get rid of them. Obviously Gerasimite is a friend as suggested to me, and I've been told that it works really well. I bought some in the past because, like I said previously in this video, I thought that Raja had them at one point and he luckily didn't. But it is a safe one to use. You even can spray it on the snake, and it does not harm the snake. Obviously you want to use water or a damp rag, whatever you want to do. I just let him swim in a container to get it off, and then I used a rag to let him crawl through so it would get off completely. But you can spray the Decor with it. You can spray the tanks with it, and I even let it sit there and dry, and then I went over it with a damp rag, the stuff that I sprayed it with. Also there's Preventamite or Pam. Obviously do not use Pam cooking spray. That's not what Pam is. It's called Preventamite, and that's why it's just initialed Pam. And I've never used it before, but I've heard people say it's safe to use. When you're spraying it in a tank, do not have the water dish present with any of the stuff I just mentioned. Do not have the snake present when you're spraying in the tank. If you are going to use Gerasimite, you cannot spray it on the head of the snake. And I know that kind of sounds hard, but if you have the snake laying in a container, you can easily just grab the head like this. They'll calm down because they're in a dark space, and you can spray the body without getting the head dirty. I mean, not dirty, without getting the head wet with the spray. Now, if your snake does not like you grabbing it around the head like I just did, obviously I leave it to where there's a hole where he can pop out right there. Then just use a rag or something and just lay it over its head while you're spraying. That way it will not get in its eyes or its mouth or its nose. So, because you definitely don't want it to inhale or anything, any of the spray. It's not safe for it to eat or anything, it's just safe for you to spray on it. Okay guys, so what I'm going to talk about real quick is something I just thought of. It's cohabbing snakes. And I know there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, oh, I can do that. And I have heard of successful cohabs before. If you have big enough tanks, if you have enough heating spots, if you have enough feeding spots, hides, the whole shebang. But when you are starting off with a corn snake, I would highly suggest you not cohab, because you're not experienced. You've just got this snake. You've never had snakes before. You've never had a corn snake. And there have been times where in my corn snake group, there has been a few times in my group where I have seen posts of people that have had one corn snake eat their other corn snake because they had two corn snakes living together, or there have been one corn snake where it's been wounded or its tail has been like chewed off. I'm not really sure how that was accomplished, but the tip was missing. So, snakes are territorial, especially males. You don't want to keep male snakes together. If they're females, sometimes it can work out. Do not keep a male and a female together if you are not going to provide homes for the babies they will potentially have. And it's not a good idea in the first place because the male will constantly want to breed the female. It's going to stress her out. She possibly could even have problems with calcium deficiency because she's putting all this calcium towards her eggs. That right there could also cause her to die, along with being stressed from being harassed all the time by a guy. I mean, you as a woman, if a woman's watching this, you don't want to be harassed by men all the time. So what about the animals? They probably don't. So, I definitely, like I said, don't suggest cohabbing. If you want to cohab snakes, you're going to need a really big tank because they're each going to need their own space. And if one corn snake can live a 3 to 4 foot tank, then you're definitely going to need twice the length to be able to accommodate for more snakes, because they both need to have their own area that they can live, that they can go to their own space. If you see snakes laying on top of each other, that's not cuddling. One of them is trying to assert the dominance onto the other one. The other one's just submitting by staying at the bottom and not trying to fight back, but some will try to fight back. So I definitely suggest just getting one corn snake, getting its own house for it, and I just say house because that's pretty much what you're doing. Get its own tank for it, for its own spot to live, and don't cohab at all. If you insist on doing it and you don't want to listen to me, then I'm going to warn you that it may turn out bad. If it works, like I said, just do females, because, like I said, you don't want to do males together and you don't want to do males and females. unless you're breeding and you have the space and stuff for all these baby snakes you're going to have. But like I said, I just would suggest not cohabiting at all. You don't have to worry about the snake being stressed. The snake will be healthy. It's not going to be at a chance of being harmed or eaten by the other snake. So it's just all in all a good idea to not cohab. I'm sorry if there's people out there that are going to hate on me because they cohab and it's fine. I'm not hating on the people that cohab. I just literally said if you're experienced you can do it. It's not like I'm your boss or anything. I just am suggesting not to do it unless you're really experienced and you have a huge space for these snakes and you just insist on doing it even though everyone says it's a bad idea. Those kind of people I can't control. But for new people that have never owned a corn snake, I highly suggest just getting one because you don't know if the snakes are going to get along together. Even hatchlings have eaten each other before, and Rose is moving around in the box again. Okay. So anyway guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this video now because I've talked about all the main stuff. Raja here is going to go inside my shirt now. He's such a dork. He's just like, ooh, I'm going to just go up to the camera now. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry that this video was really long, but I had a lot to talk about and stuff. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching and have a good rest of your day.